Hello everyone and welcome along to the Porsche Club Motorsports Championship with Pirelli here in, of course, Donington Park, where the season began right the way back in April. It's the penultimate weekend of the championship, of course, and you can see conditions probably very different than what they were in April. It's become a little bit more cloudy, a little bit more windy, although that said the wind has kind of dropped off just a touch throughout the start of this day. Obviously qualifying has already come to a close. You'll never guess who's on pole position. You've joined this championship before. It's Simon Clark still making it 11 consecutive pole positions, taking every single one of them throughout the season. You can see there the wind in the bottom of your screen, 22 kilometers an hour. It's very similar to what it was over the last couple of days here as well. So I'm sure it's going to race pretty much the same, where it's a little bit of a headwind coming down to turn one, and it pushes the cars up the hill just a touch, running down into the likes of McLean's and Coppers around the back end of the circuit. Should be a fun one. Obviously, when it comes to the excitement of this championship, things are very tight at the top. Mark McAleer has a 321 points to his name, and so it's about a 16-point lead over Simon Clark, who'll be starting this race from pole position, and just 13 points further back from that you'll have Jake McAleer as well. Obviously, as they roll their way around, we'll get the starting grid for him. Once again, it is Simon Clark starting from the pole position. Jake McAleer will be starting from second place before we get to James Calley, and Mark McAleer starting from third and fourth. Back on row number 3 is Bill Calley and Christian Walker. Chris Dyer and Richard Baston will be starting from 8th position on the grid. The final few rows within our top category, it's Pete Evans and Julian Morris. Then we've got Paul Seagrave and Paul Simpson rounding out that category. Back down though into the AMs quickly as they roll their way onto the grid. It'll be Jessica Wilkinson starting from the AM pole, with Steve Clark alongside Angus Archer and Shiraz Khan starting alongside them. Then it's Darren Labbott and Jamie Callender with Carl Hazelton and then Jason Brown. Before we get the final row on the grid, it'll be Brian Richardson. With a bit of a delay, we'll see then Pete Morris take to the race. So they're all lining their way up on the grid now, putting themselves in position to preparing themselves for that run down into turn one. You can see them. It is quite tight, courtesy of the amount of cars. 22 starters. Yeah, it's 22. 22 starters on the grid. Means that it will be quite a tight pack running down into that first corner. Of course, they are starting effectively in 2 separate groups in that sense, where you've got the top category, the championship, and then you've got the AM category, which would be starting from the rear few rows as well. So it is going to be a busy grid on that race down into the first corner, and it's not a staggered start, so they're not starting first and then a little bit back is second and a little bit back is third. Basically it's the first row which start alongside, then the second row are slightly offset to that, and then further back, which is why you can see them as such a large pack there. I'm sure if you've joined the Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli before, you'll be well aware as that's the case. However, sometimes you never know, you've got to explain these things. It's going to be a tough start though for them. Let's see though if Simon Clark can translate this one into victory. Did that both times back at Croft, and of course has won a couple of other times this season. Let's see if he's going to do it once more. We race our way straight down into the first corner, and once again it is a good start from Simon Clark, but much better from the outside. I think that's Calley just trying to make that move, sends it around the outside. It is going to be a hold though for our pole sitter and championship leader as they all funnel their way through the first corner. All nice and clean as they head down the hill. Big lead already for Simon Clark as we go 2 abreast in the background as well, trying to find their way single file. Big moment there as well as they just trying to catch the car as we hit the bottom of the hill and then begin this rise up out of the old hairpin towards the likes of McLean's and Coppis. Couple of cars running out wide, side by side there. That was the 28 of Jessica Wilkinson, so obviously from the AM pole, dropping backwards ever so slightly, but still trying to settle herself into the race as all the drivers will. 25 minutes in this one. I said there'll be plenty of battles up and down. There's Paul Simpson trying to get past Julian Morris a little bit further down the order. I'll update you with the positions as soon as they cross the line, but at the moment it most certainly is Simon Clark leading the race. Bit of a slide and someone's entered the gravel. I don't know where that was, but I most certainly heard someone clip at least some form of gravel trap around the McLean's Coppis area. I think everything's all right though, just a little bit of a brush with the gravel before they return onto the road surface. There is Julian Morris defending from Pete Evans. That was a good defence though, coming in as they head now into the Melbourne Loop. Big dives from a couple of the drivers. That would be Paul Simpson that's made that dive down into the... Oh, there's contact as well. They're going to go out to the barrier. It'll be Paul Simpson, I believe. It might be Julian Morris who was contact. There was the contact with straight across the road. It wasn't Paul Simpson, sorry. I think that might have been Pete Evans. He's had the moment there in that yellow and black car. I'll update you as soon as they come round, but a little bit sketchy as they try and find their way around this circuit. It is Simon Clark leading from Mark McAleer at the moment at the front of the field. It will indeed, of course, be Jake McAleer in that third position as well. There comes a move to the inside from the number one of Paul Simpson, just working past Paul Seagrave. So a little switch of position as we head down into the Craners in that grouping. And I believe that I was going to try and work out who was the leader in the AM category now after the start of the race. I think it is Khan. So Shiraz Khan is the race leader in the AM category, but of course the race leader overall is Simon Clark. Obviously those categories separated on type of car as basically whether you're a boxer or not. You can see there on the left-hand side of your screen, so there's pink of Khan, then it is the 77 of Steve Clark that is in second position in the AM category, but at the moment in the race lead, it is Simon Clark. Running away with things at the moment. It's just set the fastest lap of the race, obviously with it being the first one. However, has been caught by both Mark and Jake McAleer. So the top lot in the championship that are separated by less than 20 points. 19 points separates the top three in the championship. It does look as though Simon Clark's run to the end of this race is not going to be too easy. There is going to be a lot of pressure, as much as that car can qualify. Race-wise, is going to feel that pressure. Simon Clark has won a fair few times this year. It's 5 times thus far in the 2024 season. We've got an incident back here. Is the number 45 of Paul Seagrave there that just manages to get back going again, and it's the 52 of Darren Labbott. So those two making just a little bit of contact as they head down into the Melbourne hairpin. I'm sure it was only a light brush, because it doesn't seem as though there's any major damage on the 52. And it didn't look as though there was any damage on Paul Seagrave's car either. So I think they might have escaped that one quite nicely. A little bit of a side-by-side down the hill. They all try and funnel their way through. And again, it is a little three-way fight back here as the 85 of Richard Baston will be hanging on to that position at the moment, just keeping them clear. That is for 5th position overall. So I believe Calais has just got through. The number 80 of Bill Calais has just got through into 5th position. Might have been a switch even behind, because it got Dyer also in tow. So expect there will be a couple of position changes in that group, and like you say, seeing a bit of it. I will actually correct myself. It is indeed the 9 of Chris Dyer has worked his way through and up into 7th position in 6th position rather. So Bason's now in 7th position, and the fight there is that of Walker, Christian Walker, trying to work their way through into 7th place. So they look to the inside, trying to get through in that black and blue car. That is Christian Walker. No opportunity as they head down into the Melbourne hairpin, and so it'll be Baston hanging on to that position for now. But again, Walker looks to the inside, goes back to the outside, heading down to the final corner. We'll try maybe an up and under as they head back out onto the start-finish straight. Very tight line going down into Goddard's as we complete that lap. Update with the front of the field, by the way. 2.2 seconds separates the lot of them, because Jake McAleer has just set the fastest lap of the race at a 39.690. So it's closed to within half a second of Mark McAleer, and they've both closed a quarter of a second in the first sector alone on Simon Clark. So there is the potential of a battle for the race lead as we head into the final stage of this race. I mean, like I've said, Simon Clark might well have had every single pole position so far in 2024, all 11 of them. Championship lead, though, not in Simon Clark's hands. So, you know, shows that qualifying is one thing, racing is another. Oh my goodness, that is a big spin. I don't even know how you quite managed that one, but it was the 85 of Baston just getting onto the brakes as they head through the Schwartz curve, a little bit unsettled, maybe got onto the brakes a little bit too hard and dropped an extra gear, and the rear just locked up and spun round. So for Baston, that'll be a few positions lost indeed. That is a big shame, and I will say good reactions from those behind not to cause a larger incident. There's Julian Morris. at the moment. That'll be running in 8th position now. So Walker had some great reactions there, yeah. But Julian Morris, who we're looking at here in the number 10 car, trying to keep Simpson at bay, but Paul Simpson will try and find some way through. Like I say, it's always scary when someone spins round right in front of you, and especially around a corner like McLean's where you're so highly committed into that turn. It can be a little bit awkward. That might be a little bit too deep coming into the corner from Morris, but still manages to hook it up ever so slightly before running a little wide on the exit of the corner and straight through then to take over that position. It's a nice move indeed from the blue and yellow car there of Walker. Just snuck through on Morris after making that mistake. Not too bad down at the final corner. It was quite easily read. This is the black and green car there of Morris, which is a little bit overly overdriven into that final turn. Here's the battle for second position though. It's Mark McAleer, of course, just leading Jake McAleer at the moment in the battle for second. The previous lap, it was slightly, tiny bit better on lap time from Jake McAleer than our race leader Simon Clark at the moment. You can just see there in the white, green and black car rolling through the foreground of shot. The two McAleers, though, will fight over second position. They are in the fight in the championship as well. Mark McAleer, the driver who's second at the moment in the race. So just ahead of Jake McAleer at the moment is the driver that's leading the championship by just 6 points over, of course, Simon Clark. And the top three here have been on the podium so many times together this season. They were on the podium at the first round of the season. Obviously, the first round of the season we were here at Donington Park. It was the Donington Park National, to be fair. And Mark McAleer was the driver who won that race. Simon Clark won the second race, but it was these three drivers that were on the podium on that race. And the next one, where they all were on the podium. It was only Brands Hatch Race 2 where one of them finally wasn't on the podium. It was Jake McAleer who was the first one to not be on the podium. I think courtesy of a retirement back in the second Brands Hatch race. Then Simon Clark retired the next one as well. It's been an up and down season for everyone. These three are the three main protagonists towards the front of the season. They've won every single race with the exception of the first Anglesey race where Bill Calley was the driver who won that race. Currently sat in 5th position in this race is Bill, so chances of them winning this race quite low, but 9 minutes down and still there's plenty of battling still to come. Speaking of Clarks, by the way, leading the race in the AM category, Steve Clark has now taken over the lead of the AM category. And it'll be Callender and Khan running in second and third in that category. Khan's dropped back now into the third position in that category, and so not quite able to keep up with the pace of their rivals at the moment. That said, there is still plenty of time left to go in the race. Khan embroiled in that fight with Callender for what is 14th overall, but of course second in class. Little bit deep on the brakes goes Jake McAleer. Tries to find the X of the corner and pummels that throttle down, lights on. It's not that dark out there, but that's more of a distraction method, I'm sure, to try and really get in the mindset of Mark McAleer and, more importantly, Simon Clark. So, 6th lap complete in this race. It is Simon Clark, Mark McAleer and Jake McAleer all fighting towards the front of the field. There's a little bit further down the battle between Wilkinson, who's just got through on Angus Archer. So that'll be Wilkinson then up to 16th position. Of course, you started from pole position. Oh my goodness, that is so deep on the brakes. That is Khan, who's just run in a little bit too hot coming down into the Melbourne hairpin whilst embroiled in a fight with Callender, and now will drop back potentially even behind Wilkinson, but the smoke kicking out from that car. Wilkinson can't find a way past at the moment. There's a little bit of a brush into the final turn, says get out of my way, thank you very much. Doesn't quite move the car at the moment. It could be 3 wide heading out onto the start-finish straight as Wilkinson will have to deal with Angus Archer once again trying to come straight back through. Archer to the outside as they head into the final corner. Big on the brakes, no spin. Well, there is a spin. My goodness, that is Simpson, who's gone for a spin down the Craners. Will that car be able to get back going again? There's not been any rain overnight, so the grass should be absolutely fine to drive on. And so they'll be able to turn that one around and get back out onto the circuit. But pretty dramatic through this middle portion of the race. Simpson going for a spin. We obviously had that moment come in from Kant, who might have run a little bit wide as well, going through the old hairpin, kicking up a little bit of gravel and dust, as you see quite a few times. And back up to the race leaders, where Simon Clark is still being hounded by Mark McAleer and Jake McAleer. Mark McAleer at the previous lap was able to set the fastest lap of the race with a 1:39.476. It was a second quicker than Simon Clark, your race leader. This lap won't be quite as fast. In fact, goes about a tenth slower than our race leader, but it is certainly 3 for the race lead, as they've been able to pull a comfortable 10-second margin over Calais behind. So Jake Calais and Bill Calais will be in their own little fight for 4th and 5th, that's for sure. But it does seem as though these 3 are going to be the class of the field in this one, with 12 minutes and 50 seconds left to go. I'm sure there'll be plenty opportunities for them to switch position throughout the remainder of this race. Heading up the hill towards McLean's, and looking comfortable. I think this is the time of the race where you want to just settle yourself, not do anything too silly, not do anything too over what the car can actually do, because that's where you bite off a little bit more than you can chew, and we've already seen that a little bit, most notably, of course, with that moment for Simpson as he drops back now into 14th position overall. Will probably find his way back up into 12th position overall relatively quickly once getting past the AM category drivers. Which, of course, there's been another switch for the race lead, by the way, in the AM category. So Callender is now the race leader in that AM category, with Steve Clark having to settle at the moment for 2nd position, and still Khan is able to keep Wilkinson at bay for 15th and 16th position, of course, 3rd and 4th overall. Well, I was talking about it as if that was going to be a slam dunk. At the moment, Wilkinson's trying to drag herself straight back through for the AM podium. Wilkinson on the left-hand side in that silver, the grey car, really, as they head their way up the hill, and it is still going to be the 15 of Khan to hang on at the moment. Angus Archer sat back and ready to pounce as soon as there is an opportunity. Onto the brakes, into Coppice they go. And it will be Khan at the moment hanging on to 3rd in class, the final step of the podium in that AM category. There is your battle for the race lead in the AM category. Of course, the pink-wheeled car there of Canada is the driver that's hanging on to that race lead at present. And the car that's just made the move to the inside, that is the #1 of Simpson that I said will probably find their way past these cars pretty quickly. Bit of a lock-up there from Canada heading into the penultimate corner of the racetrack, and got to say, Steve Clark will be closing their way back in to try and potentially find a move, and at the moment probably not going to be the easiest one for Paul Simpson to find a way through. Should be able to do it into Redgate to find their way straight back past, but Jamie Callender saying, going to make this a little bit harder, because I quite like the idea of a car behind me keeping him at bay, and you know, as much as that is the case, it's not going to last for too much longer. There goes straight around the outside, Simpson. Got to be careful though. That car's already had a spin coming down the Craner curves in the recent past. Don't want to make that 2 from 2 as we head down Hollywood and then into the Craner curve. So the position switch sees Simpson up into 12th position, back down to 13th, but still in the race lead of the AM category is Jamie Callender, leading that one from Steve Clark. And then a little way back is this battle for 3rd position, which has seen Angus Archer come through into 3rd position in the AM category. A bit of a switch behind all that, but Angus Archer's done a great job then to 15th position, getting ahead of Khan and Wilkinson at the end of the previous lap. We didn't quite see that one, but that must have been very impressive. Maybe the two focus too much on each other. And through, of course, goes Angus Archer into 3rd spot. Chance of getting 1st or 2nd, though, a little bit too far down the road, because that's where this battle is that we can see. So Paul Simpson, the first of those cars to work their way through into the Fogarty S. That one's not for position in category, just for 12th overall. Basically the last of the top category cars. Obviously Seagrave is the lowest of those, but currently a little bit further down the order. Slow exit though coming in from Simpson. And once again, those 2 leaders in the AM category are keeping close company as we've got 9 minutes left to go in this race. Got to say, been a very impressive few laps on the previous few from Simon Clark to pull out now a 1.9 second lead of this race from the McAleers. And the chance of the championship lead switching going into the final race of the weekend, getting ready for the final weekend of the season at Snetterton in a few weeks' time. Does seem as though it might head its way back to Simon Clark. We're going to have an absolutely enthralling finale going into the final round of the season. Does mean with the positions as they are, the championship cannot be sorted here. Kind of can't anyway because there's drop scores, but I can't even begin to wrap my brain around drop scores because it becomes very complicated, the mathematics behind it, and the juggling that'll be for them to deal with at Snetterton. Thankfully, as we head onto the start-finish straight, bit of a windscreen wiper movement. I did just see there from one of the cars that's about to go a lap down. I don't believe it's raining, at least not from what I can see. There is the chance of sprinkles throughout the day, so don't necessarily rule it out. But I've also got a couple of umbrellas being popped up outside. Maybe it is to keep the wind off them, I don't know, but there is there's the hint of it in the air, that's for sure, as they head through the old hairpin. Still Clark leading from Mark McAleer and then Jake McAleer. There's been a spin though for the number 10 of Julian Morris. Seen an issue earlier on in the race just ahead of Morris, and now Morris is the issue. That was from 10th position, sorry, from 8th position rather, as Morris will drop back down the order. And there is a bit of damage on the front end of the 85 of Richard Bayston, who now takes over 8th position. Now, I couldn't do the maths to involve to try and work out all the drop scores and stuff. I can do the maths on this one. Car backwards at the final corner, car with a lot of damage on the front end. That's some pretty simple 2 + 2 equals. That car was the one that sent Morris round. So, yeesh. Speaking of cars being round, there is the 22 going for a bit of a spin. That, of course, is Pete Evans, who's gone for a spin from 11th position, just at Redgate at the first corner of the circuit. Bit of damage on the front end of that car as well, to be honest, on the front right, obviously left-hand side as you're looking at it. So it does seem as though the teams are going to have a little bit of work to do heading into the race a little bit later on this afternoon. I mean, that race isn't until 15:55, and it's currently 12:22, so they've got about 3 hours to fix these parts. And it's not like it is in the highest levels of racing where they'll just change the front and adjust all this, that and the other, bring the hammer out and get it sent. Speaking of getting it sent, wow, that is a big slide going up to the top from the number 15 of Shiraz Khan. I think the rain is coming down a little bit, just a touch around there, just to decrease the grip ever so slightly, because everyone's got their windscreen wipers on this part of the circuit. I'm looking at the corridor, I'm on the start-finish straight. There is no rain here, at least, as that is a big crunch to the front end of the 45 of Paul Seagrave. Now dropping right the way down the order. Was, I think, going a lap down, to be honest. But you can see the rain on the lens. Again, on the start-finish straight here, it is not raining, whereas around the back end of the circuit at McLean's and Coppice, it definitely is. I mean, that's not that far away. It is. It's probably, what, 500 metres to get to Coppice, and it's raining, and it's not here. That's just absolutely baffling. Now, welcome to Motorsport. That's one of the things that is going to catch you out. It's not raining enough to completely decrease the grip, but enough for these to slide around a little bit more than they were expecting. It doesn't look like the rain's going to get particularly heavy with the cloud coverage that we've got around here. But it's enough to keep everyone on their toes, that's for sure. Into the final corner, where there is definitely a little bit of rain coming down now, as the number 14 of Mark McAleer looks to have to settle for second position, because it looks as though it might be a third consecutive victory for Simon Clark for the second time this year. We've got 4 minutes and 40 seconds left to go. It will end up being 3 laps left in the Porsche Club Motorsports Great Britain. It's going to be, like I say, it's a tough one, but if you're Mark McAleer, as much as you're the championship leader, you don't want to be losing any more points. You'll be losing that for the race lead, but I think it will cost the championship lead. I'll update you with the points in a second. And it won't be the championship lead. It'll be close. Race victory will get 25 points. Wow, that's a big slide and a great catch. Fantastic from there from Jake McAleer. That tells you that the grip most certainly is decreased as they get down into the old hairpin. It's tricky down there at the best of times, but the rain is starting to really come down. 25 points for race victory, 21 points for second, 18 points for third. So if Mark McAleer finished in third position, we would have a switch for the championship lead, and Simon Clark would be at the top of the standings going into the second race of the weekend. But at the moment, there will be no switches. A few of these Porsches look a little battered and a little bit worse for wear, but still, I'm sure they're enjoying things out there, despite understanding the work that they're all going to have to do. Into the pit lane then comes Baston. I think it's the 85 of Baston anyway. Obviously, with the damage on the front right, a couple of cars have that damage, but I think it is Baston who's got it for the most part. And of course, we've basically got the retirement from the race, of course, from Seagrave, who we saw stationary going up towards McLean's. So it's not been an easy run for too many drivers this race. It's been pretty easy though for our race leaders in both the categories. Bit of a slide there as we look at Callender, who is the race leader in the AM category. You can tell by those bright pink wheels as to which car this is. That is very distinctive. Some would say potentially very un-Porsche-like, but you know what, I dig it. As they head up towards McLean's, the race leader in the AM category now by 4.7 seconds over Steve Clark. So that gap has grown comfortably, and Jamie Callender with the control. But in conditions where it starts to rain, where you start to have that little sprinkle, you also get that mental rain, which is where that's not me saying it's mental as in it's going to be really heavy. That's mental. That's me saying is it gets in your mind where it doesn't rain that heavily, and you see it on the windscreen, and you think it's heavier than it is. So you go slowly, preparing for it to be rain when you could just drive at normal racing speed. But it's in your head. I think that might have been what happened a little bit to Jake McAleer going down to the old hairpin, where you kind of think, oh, actually you do have to get a little bit slower, so you dab on that brakes a little bit harder. It puts too much weight on the front of the car, and it lifts that rear end up, and that's what causes the slide. Whereas the conditions, it's fine, you can just attack it at pretty high speed. As we head down now into the Melbourne hairpin. Oh, big slide from Wilkinson. That's not going to be too bad though, because coming through is your race leader. So that'll be Simon Clark working their way through on some of the lap traffic, preparing for the final lap of the race. And Wilkinson, she's dropped back to 5th in class, which I think will be a bit of a shame for her after showing impressive speed in qualifying. But it's not going to be enough, and is going to come up a lap short in the race as well. I don't think that Simon Clark's going to be able to catch our race leader in the AM category and put them a lap down. So they'll be able to do the full 14 laps of this race. The others that are going a lap down will only get 13, as there is the driver second in the race. I think it's backed off pretty strongly. Here is Mark McAleer. Seeing the conditions are tricky, seeing that there's no threat from behind from Jake McAleer, and that there's no point in trying to push to catch that 9-second gap, because it's just not going to be enough. To the inside in the old hairpin, just navigating a little bit of the lap traffic, as there is our race leader, speaking of lapping traffic, getting past Khan at the moment. So Shiraz Khan now down into 5th overall. I said Wilkinson was 5th overall, I meant 6th. I can count. Bit of a shame though for Wilkinson and for Khan, who's shown some good speed earlier on, but and was obviously leading right at the start of the race. But that big lock-up coming down into the Melbourne hairpin was really what cost them dear, as we head down into the final couple of corners, into that final sector. And the next one to be lapped, of course, will be the 52 of Darren Labbott. There we go, down a lap. But the top 3 in the AM category will be able to continue their driving, continue their battle to a certain degree. You can see them there just in the distance. But out towards the final corner, it does seem as though it's going to be another victory for Simon Clark. For the second time this season, it's going to be 3 in a row. It's the 6th victory of 2024. Simon Clark will win the first race of the weekend here at Donington Park, over the line to win once more and to close down on that championship lead. It will now just be a point or two. It'll be a couple of points in the top of the championship here in the Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli. As we'll see across the line for second place, it will be Mark McAleer and Jake McAleer in third position. Then across the line with some odd bits of drag racing, of course, we'll see the two Callets. James Calais first, and then Bill Calais will be across the line to take the fifth position in that number 80. As we'll wait for the last few to filter their way over. Obviously got a while to wait before we see that driver there, who is the race leader in the AM category. It will be a win in the AM category for Callender. Had to work for it a little bit, but once Jamie Callender had the lead, it looked pretty comfortable for Jamie Callender, and to be fair, was able to even finish on the lead lap as well, which is always a good sign. Around a circuit, as you do kind of expect, it's 2.5 miles when you go racing at somewhere like Donington National, or even to a certain degree, if you were to go to like Brands GP, because it's a little bit shorter than this, but definitely Brands Indy, you kind of expect to go a lap down when you're in the lower category. Whereas around here, 2.5 miles, with the average speed around this and the lap time it takes, you don't get too many laps. It means you shouldn't really be going a lap down. Callender will come down into the final corner, able to beat out Evans as well for position, so we'll be in 11th overall, but in the victory for the AM category. So nice drive from Jamie Callender. Steve Clark did close in quite a bit towards the end of the race there, but has to settle for second, and there across the line is Archer. Angus Archer finishing in third in category. That will finish everyone up for the race. And there is your race winner, Simon Clark, by 9.9 seconds. Very impressive drive from Simon Clark to have pulled out such a margin. Didn't get the fastest lap of the race, though. Missed out on that one by about 1/10 of a second. Mark McAleer will be the one who has the fastest lap of the race here in the Porsche Club Championship with Pirelli in the top category. And they all work their way down the Craners and get themselves back into pit lane. I think there's a few cars that might need a little bit of repairing before we go racing a little bit later on this afternoon. So as much as the work on track is done for them, it certainly isn't done behind the scenes. Here's a look though at the results, of course, provisional indeed. It will be Simon Clark with the victory ahead of Mark McAleer and then Jake McAleer. Then we'll get ourselves the number 11 of James Calais and then Bill Calais in 5th position before we get to Chris Dyer in 6th. It'll be Christian Walker in 7th position with Pete Morris taking over 8th position and Julian Morris taking over 9th. Of course, Paul Simpson just rounding out the top 10. Then onto the second page, we'll see our race winner in the AM category, of course. It's Jamie Callender in that number 12 car. The 22 of Pete Evans will take 12th position, and Steve Clark, as the runner-up in the AM category, will be in second in that, but obviously 13th overall. Angus Archer in 14th. Paul Labbott there in 15th position. Jessica Wilkinson will take to 16th position with, she did move up into the top 5 then in that category. So Shiraz Khan dropping back on the last lap before we get to Hazelton, Brown and Richardson to round out the top 20. 2 final drivers to deal with, both of them having their issues. Obviously Baston returned into the pit lane, and we had Paul Seagrave retiring from the race, going up towards McLean's with that damage on the front end. But still, a fun race, it must be said. Very enjoyable indeed. But Simon Clark takes another, and will they be able to take yet another victory throughout the season? Because obviously we've got another race to deal with later on this afternoon. So rejoin us at 15:55 for the second race of the weekend and the final race of the penultimate weekend of the season. It's definitely not going to be sorted in that race. We're going to be building up to quite a crescendo as we head to Snetterton for the season finale. Thank you so much, and join us in a bit.